Thank you for listening to the Maker in the Mix podcast, where we discuss design, innovation, and all things concrete.
I first met you, you had that you had this massive bandage on your thumb because you would I think you would run it through like a table saw or something.
Dude, that was just my luck, right? Like, yeah. It was huge, man. It was like 4 times the size of my thumb.
It looks like a popsicle.
Dude, yeah, man. Like, so the story behind that is, like, I don't know. I kind of got this idea. I needed something different. Like, I wasn't happy, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, I saw this bench. I was like, that's a cool bench. I'm like, that's concrete. I'm like, I can do that. So, yeah, that started me down the road to concrete.
Yeah. So, by the way, welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Maker in the Mix.
Oh, yeah.
Just chatting along. That's how we start now.
I'm really into it now.
It's like popping the clutch and just going.
And just FYI,
so yeah,
guys,
so that sent me down this road.
If the videos freeze or anything like that,
whatever I could do, making whatever on the weekends while I was GCing jobs and
Yeah, okay, back up, Dylan. And just FYI, if the videos freeze for y'all too, if the videos freeze or anything, just keep talking because it's recording on your device. So because you froze for me, and I was like,
yeah.
But
so we're coming up on the 10th anniversary of Caleb and Dylan. Were both in the same class.
We were, and Brett Carrick was in that class too.
Almost exactly 10 years ago. So this is like a big moment for both of you guys.
It is. And okay, so here's a funny fact I realized this morning was that Dylan, I don't know that I've actually seen you in person since class. Which is very funny to me.
He's okay, but we can hear what you said.
Oh,
yeah, I can't hear what you said.
I'm gonna have to say it again. I don't think I've actually seen you in person since class, which I find very funny.
Yeah.
I don't think you leave your shop.
I try not to go out in the general public. It feels awkward and confined.
All right, so
back to your story.
Yeah, back to your story.
What the heck got you into all this?
I mean, basically a picture of a bench I saw online. I was like, that's a cool bench. Like,
it's always something
cool. It was modern. It just had these just very rectangular, these bases that were concrete and just this beautiful black walnut slab. It was like, it's probably a 5-inch slab. I saw it online and I was like, man, that's nice. I can do that. So wasn't happy with what I was doing, yada, yada. I started tinkering around with furniture on the weekends, like reclaiming wood out of houses I was working on. And
because you were a GC at the time, correct?
Yes, I was a GC. And this was back in Maryland, so it was a little different than what I was used to, having lived in Tahoe for 10 years and learning how to build out there. Wee little bit different. But yeah, I looked at this, dude, it was like the ugliest pile of junk furniture you've ever seen. I was just looking at it and I was like, man, that feels good. I was like, that just resonates. Like, that resonates with me. I was like, I like that. Like, that made me feel a way I hadn't felt in a very long time. So
what about the furniture that appealed to you? The way it looked, the aesthetic of it, it
was just different.
Yeah.
It was something I never even thought of before. I'd never thought about furniture. That was not even a blip on my radar. Like, not even close. That's such an irrelevant thing for me. Like, I didn't care about furniture. I'm like, whatever, right? And then that just, like, it resonated in me. I felt it. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to just go all in. So I started just making stuff. Like, making. And that's what brings me down to this bench. So I'm like, dude, I'm clueless.
I remember at least your version of that bench, by the way. It was that really cool kind of like slab that kind of, it was angular sort of, and it sat down in the concrete legs. Did you make something like that really soon after class?
Like that. I just found a tree, cut it in half with a chainsaw, screwed some bolts in there, and cast some concrete around it.
Well, knowing you, it was probably like on the side of the road. You're like, "That's the one."
Right.
It was. So then, yeah, I'm like tinkering with then I discovered concrete because I thought the base was concrete. So I started tinkering with concrete, and I was like, "Oh man, this is fucking cool!" I'm like, "This is cool." Yeah, working in a barn, like clueless, and it was absolutely blissful too. Because whatever. I'm like, I'm going all in, dude. I feel it. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. So this is when I started looking into concrete and doing all this. I started looking at where to figure out how to do it. Like, it's new, man. I'm a fish out of water. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right. I had a fortunate opportunity to my mother's husband at the time is in the concrete industry. So he was able to guide me in places, but they do concrete repair. It's still concrete, it's just different. So I was kind of, everything was kind of lining up for me, if you would. So I'm like broke. I'm like selling everything just to be able to do this freaking concrete thing. And then it was getting sporty. And I got this call from a previous client. They wanted me to do like a kitchen and bath remodel. And I was sitting there and I had this beautiful bruled, I think it was just oak or something like that. I can't remember, but I was ripping it down on the table saw. And I thought to myself, you know what? What harm could it do just to pick up a couple jobs, make some money, and then come back to this? The moment I decided to do that, table saw, thumb, looked like a Pez dispenser. Thank God Union Memorial Hand Clinic is near. They pretty much saved my thumb. To this day, I can't put buttons on because it's flat. So yeah. So I'm getting all excited for the class. I'm like, yeah, go, go, go. I'm going to learn this. That happened like 2-3 weeks before the class.
So okay, how'd you find out about CCI? Because it was a totally, like I used to, and I still kind of do. I used to call it, Jeff. I don't know if you've ever heard me call it this. For years and years, I would call CCI the Oddly Specific Institute because it's like
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I've said it for years because it's like what. I'm over here like thinking nobody in the world does concrete countertops, and there's an institute for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I joked that it was the Oddly Specific Institute. And so I'm curious, certainly being kind of the only name in the game, it's easy to find you. But at the same time, like, I feel like a lot of people had different avenues to find CCI. So, Dylan, how'd you find it?
Lots of Googling. Lots of like Googling, seeing what people were doing, like finding out about people, and just
the internet's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, just going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole after rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
It was down to you guys and like 2 other people. I was going to go with somebody else just because it looked fancy, it looked cool, right on. That's kind of how I want to be. That's kind of what I want to be making. So that's a great fit. That's what I think. And then I talked to Peter, who was my stepfather at the time. I was getting his advice. And so he took the time to look at all the classes and he pointed me to CCI. And I talked to him about it. And he was basically like, everything looks cool. Everything looks great with those other sites. They'll show you how to do things. But Concrete Institute will teach you how to make concrete. He's like, they come at it from a different angle. And that's when I started thinking about it. I was like, yeah, so I'm going to learn how to make concrete. I'm not going to learn how to make an island. I'm not going to learn how to make a desk. I'm not going to learn how to make a countertop. I'm going to learn how to make the damn concrete because it'll go in any form you put it in.
Right.
So
you said that he does repairs. What kind of business? What kind of repairs? Like patching sidewalks?
Oh no, dude, they do crazy stuff. His company's Structural Group, I think. I think they went through some rebranding, so it's Structural Group, I think now. But they do all kinds of like crazy shit, man. Like carbon
That was
fiber.
the leading question, by the way.
Yeah.
Calling you out.
Yeah. Post tensioning, like one of their sister companies is VSL. So they do all the post tensioning. They like fix bridges, they fix infrastructure, they do bomb
These are
proofing.
folks who also are real engineers who also understand the real nuances of how concrete works.
Oh,
And
yeah.
works. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I remember when Dylan, we were young friends, if you will, and I remember you were like,
"You're still young, baby."
I know. But our friendship was young at the time.
Yeah.
And you were like, yeah, I was just making some carbon fiber, rebar, and I was like, what? You're making it?
Yeah.
Can you? And because Peter's got like a roll of ribbon. I was like, just making it. Okay, And so I feel like that's the kind of like you're stretching carbon fiber, strapping to reinforce your table, and you were doing crazy stuff before we knew how to do crazy stuff.
Right.
Yeah, like it's like concrete found me. Like I didn't really find it; it found me, and I kind of curse it to this day. It's my nemesis, right?
But
yeah,
you love it. You're in love with it.
Like I love it. Like everything started happening. All the doors started happening. Everything started happening at the right time when it was supposed to happen when I started. So then next thing you know, I take the course, and then they bought a new building for their corporate headquarters, and they wanted me to make all the tables and like a lot. I did the kitchen, I did reception desk, I did seating areas, I did these
conference
crazy
table.
Yeah, the conference table. I did these crazy gabion walls. I did wall panels. I did the bathroom. I did counter. Like I did so much stuff. I think I did a total of these boat tables. I think I did like a dozen boat tables, but it had to be an artistic way to show potential clients what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to kind of take an engineering viewpoint on it to kind of show people what they were being sold when they were sitting at the table and they didn't even know it was happening. Right?
What's so funny about that is, again, going back 10 years, I remember all of those jobs because we became friends in class, and I feel like we haven't really, it just clicked. And so even though I haven't seen you in person,
we were giving each other shit the whole time. It was great.
The whole time. And I feel like even though I haven't seen you in person in 10 years, like we've gotten close. And so I remember like all of these jobs. And what's really funny is like I remember the wall panels, I remember all the tables, and you won an award, if I'm not mistaken, for the conference table. And I do want to talk about that too. But I was like, how in the hell are you getting all these jobs, dude? I'm over here struggling for the kitchen, and
well,
while you guys are talking, I can share some pictures because remember that visit in 2016?
Yes, when I helped you teach a class.
Well, I have
very proud of that.
I'm going to go ahead and share my.
I was helping teaching, Caleb. I was helping with teaching with Jeff before you were just.
Well, that's I'm not too proud to be okay with that,
Can you guys see this?
We're about to be able to.
But there's a catch with the job also. I was working nonstop, learning like a sponge. My brain was about to explode, and I did the math one day. I think I was making around around $9 an hour.
Well, because you were working like 22 hours a day.
Yeah, but it wasn't about. It was about learning. It was about making this happen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was
okay. Now this entire podcast is going to be a giant rabbit hole. I'm fully aware of this, but can you tell us? I love it so much. Can you tell us about this conference table? Like, is all of that like obviously the cable is not concrete, but like, tell me more about that because this has been a long time and I don't remember everything about it.
So this is their main conference desk. He got the inspiration of this desk from, I cannot remember the name of the bridge, but it's the longest suspension bridge, and it's in France.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a kilometer high.
yeah,
Oh, cool.
it's like ridiculous. I was like it's absolutely gorgeous, but they love the post tensioning and all the engineering. And meanwhile, they're
That's a cable stayed bridge, by the way, the way the cables are arranged.
yeah, and it's their competitor's job. Their competitors did that project, so these are the kind of projects they do. But he loved the bridge so much that he's like, I want to incorporate this in our main executive table. So throughout the entire job, I had to stick to the parameters that I had to use as much as of their product in the tables as possible. So like the small ones were like kind of like, I don't know, operation tables, I guess. Like there'd be a football table like this, and then a rectangle in the middle. I kind of just had this idea that I'd just pull out the concrete and they'd see the inner workings. Whether it's like that.
Yeah.
That's how they do their electrocathodic system. Their cathodic protection. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's titanium ribbons in there and like all that stuff.
Oh, that's freaking cool.
Dude, I haven't seen those pictures forever. Yeah, so
Jeff,
it was
I
like
love
really
that you
cool.
just have that like there. Jeff was over here prepared.
Yeah, you were.
Well, I just did this. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I think I remember where those are.
Meanwhile, like I'm clueless, man. I got no idea. I have all these big design companies asking me questions. I'm like, oh yeah, well,
let's see.
Oh my gosh.
Then with every one of these tables, I also had to learn about the technology behind it so I could like wrap my head around what I'm actually doing, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it was a huge learning experience. Like, it was amazing. And then if I had questions about what I was doing, I'd just go ask leaders in the field, and they would explain it to me. Like, these guys are packing like fucking 3 doctorates and shit. Like, I'm like, what? Like, what? And they're explaining this stuff to me. That was the first table I ever made. No, that wasn't. That's the post tension though. So those are actual post tension rods and everything. Like I drove down to VSL and they were in Springfield at the time. I got to look at the whole manufacturing facility.
That's so cool.
Yeah. If you go back to the main conference desk, if you look at the center.
Well, hold on. Where is it? Hang on. I'm in like, where's that conference desk?
Yeah, so I was like enamored by all the commercial work you were doing. I mean, because you have been like 90% commercial for the entire time.
Yeah, I pretty much. Yeah, I kind of just went right into commercial.
Yeah, I feel like Dylan is like the king of commercial work.
All right, so there's another view of it.
So if you look,
what do you want me to look at?
If you look at the right there, that thing that the telephone's sitting on.
Yeah,
this thing. Yeah,
that's a cable strand holder for post tensioning.
Oh my gosh,
multiple strands.
Yeah, so that's like 12 strands or something like that. 18, 20. I forget how many strands. That thing's heavy. All the bases. If you look at the table bases, those metal things, those are all post-tension harnesses that they sleeve everything to. So all the tables in the whole place were made like that.
That's awesome.
These things right here. Yeah.
And so, what's the tan underneath that the cable staying is going to? Is that your stuff too? Is that like tan concrete?
That's just straight up rapid set, man.
God, I love it. I love it so much. Right? Yes, you actually turned me on to rapid set back then. Mm-hmm.
You're rapid set, man.
Yeah, you were the one who convinced me not to be scared of rapid set.
Yeah, don't be scared. What worst thing that happens is you redo it.
Well, I did almost ruin my Rimcraft mini sprayer like the first time I used it because I was casting something at night and I had a friend. My guys had gone home, of course, and so I called my friend. Actually, Jeff, you'll find this funny. I called Chaz, and I was like, Chaz, can you come help me, cast something? Now, mind you, Chaz has done a few things, at his house or whatever, but he'd never used rapid set. And so he didn't know like about the citric acid and all this. And so I got through the mist coat. Yeah, I got through the mist coat and I got through a layer or two of backer, and I was like, I do not need to waste all this pigment now. It's totally covered. Let's just run with no pigment. And so I was like, just leave out the pigment. But I forgot to tell him, don't leave out the citric acid.
Ooh.
And so I'm like spraying backer because this was early on. It was my first. I was all excited about spraying backer. And so I'm spraying backer. This is before a lot of SCC and all that. And I was like, man, this is starting to spray.
This big gun. You're like,
yeah,
showtime, baby.
Awesome. And I'm like, this is starting to spray kind of slow. And it'll be fine. I'm troweling it. And then I was like, this is kind of hot. Oh, no.
The oh shit moment.
Yeah. I mean, I spent the next like several hours trying to save my gun. So,
I had a similar experience.
We all have that hiccup moment. The very first time I started using Rapid Set, this was way back 2009, maybe, mist of time. And one of the Rapid Set regional salespeople, that's how I got in contact with them. And they'd bring me material. They're like, here, try this. Let us know what you think. All that kind of thing. And it was in the summer, and I remember my shop manager, Brad, were like, oh, let's make some samples and do something. And I think that's when I started very, very early on doing some flexural tests. My flexural test machine way back then was super, super primitive.
But you had one.
But I had one, right? It was
yeah.
crude.
And then you're like, wait a minute, I got to recheck these numbers. This doesn't make sense.
And so I'm like, yeah, just go mix them up, and I'll go do something else. And he's like, okay, I gotta, he's mixing it up in the bucket, and he went to go get the mold, because I guess I was making the mold, and I got a phone call or something. He had to walk across the shop to pick up the mold. He came back, and the bucket was already hard,
steaming.
Because it was August for one, and
no retarder,
no ice, and it's like, oh, what is it? So
and your whole entire shop spiked by like 10 degrees.
Right. Out comes the sledgehammer to cover the mixing head, and fortunately everything was fine. But that was a surprise. Like, okay, let's talk about how to slow this down.
Right.
So
lots of ice. Don't be afraid of ice.
No, not at all.
Ice and citric acid are your friends. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So it's my job to kind of attempt to steer the conversation. We'll see. We're going to see how it goes.
It's the MC.
I attempt.
MC
okay. So is that my new nickname? I don't know. So we came to class, and you immediately began doing big commercial work. Like, you became the king of commercial day 2, right? I mean, so explain that situation and how you survived, first of all. Because you were like, if I remember correctly, you lived in your shop because you were like, I don't have time to go home. We don't have time for this.
So we took the class in October. And then I started that structural group project in January. And at first it was like, all right, let me figure this out. Like, it was an old pill manufacturing building that they bought. So they still had to do a lot of stuff in the warehouse, like get that out. And the whole place was getting remediated. Like, there's a lot of work. But
your shop was in their facility as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was in the warehouse portion in the back. So I'm like itching. I got some of my old contracting tools. I got my little freaking 2.5, I don't even know, that little compressor, whatever. I got one of those Benron Craft guns. I'm like, hell yeah. So I'm like,
the Benron.
Meanwhile, I couldn't even touch anything during the class. Like, I had this big freaking thing. So I could just watch.
You're over here you got to hold your thumb away from everything, and you're like, I want to watch, but I can't.
Yeah. I think Jeff let me grout something for 5 minutes. He's like, all right, good, come on.
Dr.
He's
Jeff,
like, enough of this.
You're gonna hurt yourself, Dylan. Stop it.
Come on. Get away from it, Dylan.
We have a saw.
This is for big boys. This is big boy stuff, Dylan. It's good. So I'm there doing the structural job, and I mean, I'm clueless, dude. I got no idea, man. I've never done a commercial project, let alone concrete. Like, I'm like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah, king of commercial and king of say yes and figure it out later.
Yeah.
King of confidence, right? King of confidence.
I mean,
True.
yeah, fake it till you make it, right?
Oh, nice.
And then, so yeah, I'm learning, I'm making, I'm learning, I'm making, I'm calling Jeff, I'm making, I'm learning, I'm breaking shit, calling Jeff, I'm calling Jeff, I'm calling Jeff, I'm calling Jeff.
That was on file.
That's right. That's
You're
right.
damn right, man. Dude, I remember some of the times I'd call you and I'm like, there's no way, and you'd answer. I'm like, he just answered my phone call at like 11:30 on a Friday night. And Jeff be like, hi, Dylan. How can I help you?
Well, because I knew you were like the madman that would spend 36 hours going straight.
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
If you're calling me that you needed something.
Yeah, like, yeah.
Well, because at 11:30 on a Friday, he was probably in the middle of casting something.
Right.
Well, yeah. And something went south.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I need answers. Meanwhile, I called Jeff, and Jeff would just talk to me and make me come up with my own answers, which was great. He could have easily just given me you could have easily just given me the answers, Jeff, and you didn't. You made me think, and you made me earn them, which is that's value right there.
Okay, so that's actually something Diane said last week, and it's totally true. And I don't think I think about that in the moment, but you're right, because every time I've called Jeff for an answer, which is as often as you, I'm sure. You know, and it's like he just kind of guides you on this path to your own answer. And so for me, and I'm assuming for you too, the biggest thing that propelled me in my understanding of the material, in my understanding of clients, in my understanding of what we can and can't and should and shouldn't do was Jeff just patiently leading us along the path, you know?
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. Like, I can honestly say I would not be where I am right now if it wasn't for you, Jeff. Like, I mean, that's no bullshit. Like, straight up, like, the stuff, like, all right, so I did the structural job, right? That was done.
Again, looks fantastic, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean,
like, that was
do justice.
Yeah, I got to get back there and get better pictures.
And you won an award for it, didn't you?
Yeah, I won an award. Went out to Vegas. It was pretty cool.
I've still to this day never been to World of Concrete, which I think is going to change this year.
Some guy pissed me off, man. He was in my shop because they do a lot of, I don't know. They do a lot of work with other contractors and like just to bring the industry up. So they do a lot of that, a lot of those things there. And I'm back there working one day, and he's a Maryland guy. I forget his name right now. Kind of cocky. Went to the freaking Naval Academy, one of those dudes. And he does concrete. And dude, this guy had the audacity to stand in my shop. He started telling me about the concrete.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about. He started trying to educate me about the concrete. And my worker at the time, Keith, was watching this. And he's just like, oh no. Oh no. And meanwhile, my shop at the time was in a big cage, like chain link fence.
Well,
that
and
was
you
like,
had to wear like PPE also.
Oh, full PPE the entire time, man. And the fence was like, it was like floor to ceiling, right? Like that's where they stored their pills. That's where the drugs were. So this guy, and then he like comes back into like my work area, and I like put him in his place. I dropped some knowledge, and finally he was like, "Oh, okay." Then he fucking offered me a job, right? I'm like, this guy's standing in my shop. He just offered me a job. That pissed me off. So he left, and I was furious. Keith's like, "Oh man," he's like, he couldn't believe it. I'm like, man, fuck that guy. I was pissed. And then I found out like his little cradle, his little gem that he has is all the what's the design, the American Design Council, whatever. What's it in Vegas? What's their name, Jeff? The American Concrete Designer, whatever. Who gives out the awards? American Society of Decorative Concrete.
There it is.
Yeah. So I found out that's his little gem. I'm like, I'm taking it from him. So I entered that table and I won it.
Well, so I also need to note at this point, if it's not already clear to any listener, I'm going to have to mark this episode explicit. So
No, just use the beep. Sorry,
I'm just going to beep Dylan out. You're going to be talking. It's going to be
I'm gonna be like, here's the interview with Dylan. Beep, and then a beep, and then when beep.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
So that was that.
you saw this guy like, this cocky son of a bitch. I'm going to win his award.
Yeah, and I did. So there's that. And then so that job finished up, and then I'm like dead in the water. I've just been working, learning the craft, learning how to do all this stuff, navigating through how to do all this.
How long did that job take you, the structural job?
I never had to market. I never had to put myself out there, right? So I'm like, oh, what do I do? I'm like, reach out to all my friends that are in the construction industry. Just a friend of mine owned a tile company. So I'm just like trying to sell concrete to them. And they're like, I mean, they're entertaining me. They're like, yeah, that's cool stuff, right? But they're not going to buy it because they buy like truckloads, you know? And, but he actually passed it to a designer. And then I started working my way into all these designers' offices, and like they're like, "We need samples. We need samples." I'm like, "What kind of samples?" They're like, "Big samples. Just bring us samples." I'm like, "Okay." So like, I'm like a puppy. I'm like, "Okay, samples, okay."
So then the next like 6 months of Dylan's life is making every known color.
Yeah.
Yes, every known color, and I want to kill myself sometimes. But So I'm like, what size samples? Like, I didn't know. I didn't know like a 4-inch by 4-inch samples what they're at. Man, I'm bringing in like 4 foot by 4 foot samples.
Tiles.
Like tiles, like racks of them.
Probably on the back of your motorcycle. You're probably riding in with this.
No, they were in my truck, and I was going there on the weekends just to like establish a rapport with them. And yeah, so they started putting my name on jobs, and I ended up landing them. So I landed. I can't see you, Caleb.
It's all right. What's really? I'm here. Just keep talking.
So
but
I landed.
What's funny about all of this is that I feel like what's funny here is you know, commercial jobs are huge, and I remember how big your jobs have been. I bet like to my, you know, you probably did one job to my 15, and it was bigger.
Yeah, dude, they were like insane. I was completely out of my league. Like 100%, I should not have been doing those jobs at that time. Like I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea about the insurance, about everything. I had no idea about like RFI. What
does that stand for?
Like I didn't know anything, but I'm like, whatever, man. I got these jobs and I'm going to crush them. So at the same time, it's Banner Hill in Baltimore. Another designer is like, get ready, Dylan. She's Indian. She's like, get ready, Dylan. You're about to get busy. Get ready. I'm like, okay, yeah. And then I landed another one in Philly. So boom, I go from making all these tables to, oh shit, I have a lot of work. I don't know what to do. They both had the same deadlines at the same time.
And like, you are the crazy person that's like, nah, I don't need to hire anybody. I'm just gonna do it all myself.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I started doing it all myself, and then I hired somebody, Luke. He was good, and then I sent him down to where's Rimcraft, North Carolina?
South Carolina.
South Carolina. I'm like, I just bought this mini mixer and mini sprayer. I'm gonna go down there, pick it up, and come back, and we're gonna bang this stuff out. He's like, all right, cool. I'm like, yeah, man, yeah. I got a mini sprayer, I got a mini mixer. I'm like, yes, this is what I need, right? Confetti. Psh. My life just got so much easier. Well, I mean, of course, I read the directions.
Yeah, you did.
Fired that puppy up, man. It was go time. I didn't pay attention to anything, man. Just like mixing a bucket, it's just a bigger bucket, right? Bigger hose, bigger whatever. What could possibly go wrong? Well, let's just say about an hour and a half into it, buckets were flying through the air. concrete was everywhere. I'm fucking hurling like full buckets of concrete just out of the way. Like I was pissed, yelling, the hose got jammed. It was getting hot. Like it basically just pumped it till it stopped. I didn't have the right mix design. It was just clogged. Long story short, Luke never came back to work.
Oh man!
So there I am with the mini sprayer, mini mixer, and solo.
Well, but you did it. You're like, yeah, I'm just throwing down 4,000 pounds, and I'm like, oh my god,
yeah.
What?
That's insane to do it all by yourself,
dude. But not really. Like, so I'm back to working by myself again, which I love. And there's positives and negatives, right? You got to look at it. Positive, you don't have to worry about anybody else. You don't have to look after anybody else. You don't have to make sure everybody's doing their thing. You don't have to double check things. Big positive. Big negative, I don't have to do the number one anymore. It's just me. So it's like every positive, there's a negative. But solo, I know where everything is. I'm organized. Like, I mean, I go mental with this shit. Like, I need to know where that is, because once you're casting, man, it's got to be like second nature, right?
Yeah.
Like it's second nature. I reach over here. I know that tool's there. That tool's there. When I clean them, I put them back. I don't have to like lay everything out. Like I used to lay everything out like I was a surgeon. I'd have boom, 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 boom. Next thing you know, something happens. All that shit's all over the floor. You're still casting. You got no idea where to go. So, I mean, I kind of get off on it too.
Being organized is really important. Not enough people try to be as organized as they should be, especially in the heat of the moment. I mean, you guys both know when you're casting something, especially something big or right, something complicated and expensive, being organized, having everything, all your ducks in a row, is super critical. I mean, it's super critical,
and it's the most important thing.
But it's calming too, because it's already chaotic and already stressful. So
until reality, so all that's great. It looks great. It's good to have. It's good to be organized. I'm talking about like when we're first learning, right? Like you're figuring things out. Like you got everything. You're getting your mental head space. You're like, all right, you're going through it in your head. I mean, I treat this like a sport. Like you're going through it in your head. You're like, all right, I got this, and that. And then everything's great. Everything's working until it's not.
Yeah.
Then that's the problem. All right. So anybody can do it when it's easy. It's figuring out when it's hard, what to do, what you remembered from the previous time this thing happened or kind of happened or whatever. And that is where CCI comes in, because I tell you what, I understand what's going on. I know how I know what's going on to some extent. Like, I mean, I know enough to get me in trouble and enough to get me out of trouble.
Yes. Yeah.
But I know about the material. I know these things, right? So that if I didn't know these things, man, I don't know how many pieces I would have lost.
Well, because you rarely break things, and you also the things you do break are the rules.
Yeah.
And so, and I think it takes...
But you have to understand the rules in order to...
That's exactly right. You have to know the rules backwards, forward, sideways, up and down, and then before you can...
You can navigate.
Be like, well, I could just do this, and it'll probably do that,
Yeah. Hopefully, I think. Maybe.
Well, I mean, I tell clients sometimes, I'm like, I'm going to do this, and I have a reasonable understanding of what it's going to look like, but at the same time, it's concrete. It's going to do it's going to take the information and do what it wants to do.
Yeah.
Some of those finishes, it's like, I don't know. Let's see.
Like you kind of have it's like you have control, but
to a point.
Don't. Yeah, you can understand it. You can try and achieve that finish, but you don't know exactly how that finish is going to.
Yeah.
It's like if you were to, pour a vertical and over segregate it to get those wavy lines, which you helped me figure out early on, because that was a thing that you were honed in on, and I
love that.
Oh my gosh, it's my favorite. Like I used to, when I would do waterfalls, I would like make the mist coat curtain just to get the little ripples, you know.
But there's always room for improvement. Always, always, always. I think that's the thing with concrete. It's like a drug, you know, like it doesn't give a fuck about you.
There are layers upon layers upon layers of directions and things you can try and tweaks. And if I change this, it's going to have a cascading effect on these things. And I mean, you can really waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right?
You can waste so much time.
Yeah. Like making endless samples, piles of samples, right?
Yes, I know. I may know a thing or two about that. But you're still learning.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like my samples.
Well, you got a lot of them. You were telling me that recently. So, I mean, you're kind of redoing a lot of your samples because some of them are old, and you've got so many that you don't, you know, what color is what, and so because you're essentially restocking some of your clients' libraries, right?
Oh, I'm restocking them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Talk about like remember that mini sprayer thing? Just grab and go. I remember talking to you guys, and Jeff, you're like, dude, I got this new product. I'm like, what do you mean new product? You're like, I want you to test it. I'm like, all right. You're like, just let me know how it goes. I'm like, cool. And I talked to Caleb. I'm like, dude, Jeff, and Caleb's like, yeah, man, I've been using that for like a month. I'm like, man. I'm like, talking about redheaded stepchild. I'm like, geez, man. So so that shows up, and I have this job. I'm doing these column wraps, and I'm doing them out of Portland too. Which, I mean, you could do Portland 1/2-inch wall panels, but they got to be right. You can't really cheat. So I stick to CSA because you can cheat, man. It doesn't matter. They won't curl. If they curl a little bit. Whatever. Concrete, if you cheat and you mess them up, man, I've had column wraps just go womp or like just ruined. So I'm going with Portland. And these were 2 columns.
Oh, I remember this job.
Yeah, they were basically 36 by 36 by 36. So 36 inches tall,
1/2 inch thick.
Yeah. I just jacked my shoulder, so I didn't really have...
you need to at some point in this situation tell the story about your bicep. So get through this story, but
I have a picture of one of those column wraps, by the way.
Yeah, so anyway, I'm like, all right, I had my tables packed because I like to do like 1 column at a time. If I have pieces, if I have pieces that are next to each other or near each other, I cast them at the same time.
Absolutely.
If it's behind the other piece, I'll cast it at another time. I don't care. But if they're near proximity, I cast them all at the same time, so you know they're going to be right.
Yeah, and you've got 2 very large tables, so you can do that.
Yeah, and I got the mini sprayer, so whatever. So I got these columns, and I'm like, I'm just going for it, man. I talked to you guys a little bit. You kind of told me a few things. I'm like, all right, get the water. I got the CCI mix design out. I'm like putting stuff in there. You didn't send fluidizer, so I'm just using regular Super P. And it was fucking disaster, man.
It's a learning curve, and
Dude,
I tried to tell you.
I know. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, you did. Both of you did. You're like, why don't you play around with it a little bit? Like, it's different. It's different.
There's a lesson for you right there, and this is a lesson for everybody out there. When you get a new product, whether
play with it first.
You go to your favorite home center, and there's this shiny can of something new, or your best buddy on the interweb said, hey, this is the best thing since sliced bread, try it. If you've never used it before, I don't care if it's a pigment, an admixture, a sealer, whatever, never, ever, 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 under any circumstances, do it on a real project. You will pay for it. Hang on.
That's pretty good advice.
Pretty accurate, you know.
Spot on.
Okay, but since you've gotten
with CSA,
yeah,
and never
yeah.
So okay, since you did dial it in, and what are your thoughts on it now,
dude? It's a
so
game.
just to clarify, what was this is alpha polymer.
Alpha polymer, but you've gotten fluidizer since then.
Alpha polymer. Yeah. So the first time was a disaster. Like it was a disaster.
Yeah, because you were using a weaker plasticizer.
Yeah, I was using a weaker plasticizer. I didn't educate myself about the new product. I mean, it's just a polymer, right?
Dylan, read instructions.
How much could it change the concrete, right? Go for it. Just go. It changes it a lot. It does not behave. And this whole time I've been using Fortine.
Yeah.
So I know Fortine. I know how it's going to behave. I know, like I can just hear it in the mini mixer mixing, and I know by the sound.
It's like a milkshake.
If I need to make a full swirl of Super P or just a dabble or just a little bit of water. Like I don't even have to look at it. Well,
it's all feel.
Yeah, it's a totally new day here at Dylan Myers Design. Thank you, Alpha.
It's a better day.
It's a better well, I mean, it just raised the bar like it took me a little while to dial it in. I'll be completely honest.
Well, because fluidizer is a freaking sledgehammer.
Yeah, it's a sledgehammer.
Like you're using a little ball peen situation, and then all of a sudden you get like a 40-pound, and you're like, I don't know what to, oh god, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm trying to learn this on like a smaller scale, making like small pieces, making samples, just using a little
and with
hand
the mini mixer, it's a totally different ball game too. You've got to,
dude, different ball game, 100%. But you get that dialed in.
It is strong. Oh my gosh.
It's ridiculous. I'm gearing up for a project I'm doing, all these wall panels, right? And I had to resurface my cables. I had to redo them. And the reason why I use epoxy for a lot of reasons, but and I beat them up, right? So I did a quick fix a couple years ago, and I didn't put the epoxy down right. So there's these tiny little microscopic bubbles from epoxy. You know what I'm talking about, right? Sanded them, I waxed them, I put the form release down, no problems. Pull the pieces up, slide them, flip them, no problem. Alpha, dude, it is so dense. Like I'd be pulling these pieces out, looking at them, and they got like pimples all over it. And my cables are getting jacked. Like just drag mark after drag mark,
because it gets into the bubble and it just sits there and it doesn't break off.
It doesn't break off, dude. It doesn't. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, am I like really that soft that I can't even pick up a piece of concrete and flip it right now? I'm like, dude, like, man, up, man. I'm like, what? And then it finally dawned on me. I'm like, because I started the process a piece, and I was just like, holy crap, it's the freaking Alpha. I'm like, I was blown away, like straight up blown away. And then I'm cleaning up.
You just wait.
Oh, I know. There's some goodies in store.
Right. Was it you that you were texting me about a piece, like a piece of concrete that was like this thick that you couldn't go through or something?
Oh yeah. So from time to time, I clean my floor. I have just a little roto jackhammer. I go over, get all the big spots. There's a coating on my floor. I don't know what it is, but everything kind of comes up. I guess I missed some, and I'm trying. I mean, it was like, let's say 6 inches by like 2 feet long, varying whatever.
You'd splash it on the floor.
Yeah, and I didn't see it. I didn't hose it off. It just sat there. I could not get it up. It was pulling the. I mean, this piece was like 3/16 inch thick, and it pulled up the epoxy on the floor.
Wow.
Bonds, baby.
It bonds, and it's so dense. I was about to give up. I'm like, all right, I'll just deal with it. Like, whatever. I'll remember it's there. I won't trip over because I don't like trip hazards. Like, it's crazy enough when I'm working anyway. So I try to be as safe as possible. But yeah, and then I was like, man, this stuff,
Well, I mean, the first time I cast a 1/2 inch panel in Portland with it, and I flipped it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is stiffer in 24 hours than the rapid set stuff I've been doing."
Oh yeah. It's like
and it's dense.
If you compare, like, let's just say alpha to Forton, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'd come
night
in
and day, not even.
Yeah, dude. I'd come in, flip a piece, process it, and the processing was easy. I knew when to process it. I knew what I could get away with. I knew where that kind of borderline was, right? Between like just ripping shit out and getting a good finish. This, dude, you come in, you flip it, you start processing.
It's like 4-day-old concrete. You're like,
dude,
what?
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, I got to back it off to 100 grit to start.
Yeah.
I had one of those. I don't know if you saw it. I posted a little concrete skull on Facebook the other day.
Yeah, I saw that.
And like a couple of them clacked together. I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a pool ball, like a billiard cue.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's just
what? I kind of want to go make. I want to get like some ball molds and make billiard balls and just
get some of those.
The ice.
Ice
I want to get some of those, and I want to make billiard balls just to see what would happen.
Yeah, just to see.
I got a pool table downstairs. I'm kind of like, I'll cast a bunch of different colors, and we'll just,
Oh, that's cool.
You're cool with them.
So the new Alpha Pro Admix is officially in blending right now.
It's in blending?
Yeah, it's in blending.
I used some on my first project yesterday. I've been using it in samples, and I actually put it in a production piece yesterday. Dude, it's so good.
So what you're used to right now, Dylan, is
being the last to learn.
It's better than that.
I'm used to
all our loyal users have known about this for months, right?
I know, but so does it? Tell me about it.
Well, so Jeff will tell you more than I will, but anecdotally, you get it's honestly stronger than what you're used to, and
that's what I've always known. Go ahead, Caleb.
The flow is wild.
Really?
Oh my gosh, the SCC on it is oh my gosh.
So when I was developing it, I wanted my two goals were very high early, like high 1-day strength. Forget 7-day strength, that's like forever. And forget 28-day strength, that's ancient history. Doesn't matter. It's 1-day strength. Like all my tests are in the last 7 months I do a 24-hour test and a 7-day strength test. And I've done a few 28-day strength.
Yeah, you recently did some 28 to kind of verify, but you did a ton of them early on.
Yeah, I did a ton of them early on, but that was more I did them more when I was developing alpha polymer, because you need to look at the 28-day strength to meet the PCI performance specs for what curing polymer is. That all works. It all does that repeatedly. It's good. So now that I know that, it's confidently, it does that. I can forget 28 days. It takes forever to get results, because you waited a whole month. I know I'm impatient. So
well, and clients are too. You're not waiting a month to install your stuff.
No, nobody does. So it is just like there's a lot of different, like the Buddy Rhodes GFRC admix, and a bunch of people have admix pack where you use your own cement, your own sand, or your own blend of sands, whatever you want, and instead of having a separate polymer and pozzolan and this, that, and the other thing, it's all blended together. So the optimization goal is very, very as high of an early strength as I can get, and it's the highest of everything that I've tested. And like my
my god, the numbers are
often
dumb.
Exceeds some very popular other admixtures or blended mixes.
Oh, yeah.
7 days
numbers, dude. I know.
There's 7 days.
It also meets a lot of rap. Yeah, it also meets a lot of rapid set stuff too.
So if you look at not like 2 hour, but if you look at 24-hour, my 24-hour strength is about the same as a rapid set 24-hour strength.
which is insane.
And
That's
it's
crazy.
white, pure white.
Yeah, pure white.
And the other criteria is high fluidity. So if you're pouring something, complex casting, whatever, you want to do direct casting or SCC, you want a very high flow. So it's very dense. You get your fibers distributed everywhere.
Yeah.
Those are the two criteria.
That's what I have the problem with.
Yeah.
That's what I've been dealing with lately because it's so good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it's magic. Like, not magic. It's just, it's
science.
It's made. Yeah. But like most of my finishes I've developed through making mistakes.
And then reverse engineering your mistakes.
Yeah. That's exactly how I get my finishes. So I'm like, oh, that's how I got that. I did that mistake. I'm like, oh, okay. Because, I mean, that's the beauty of concrete in my personal opinion is the imperfections. So now I'm having to go back and relearn all that stuff and trying to figure out how to do it with alpha.
You've also had to go back and damage pieces to get some of your...
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're like, this looks too good. I have to go. Yeah. I have to go screw it up now. Like,
yeah, straight up.
You get your wasp out, and you're.
Yeah, I got my wasp out.
That's I guess a downside of very high fluidity concrete when you're casting and
the surface quality is crazy.
Casting, the surface quality is so good.
It's amazing,
and it's so uniform that it almost, in some instances, well, it may not look like plastic, but if your aesthetic requires a lot of character and chaotic surprises, you're not going to get that with something like that.
So well, but you can. I mean, there are some. Yeah. Well, but yeah, Jeff, you told me one time I couldn't get royal blue out of rapid set. So, I think.
You can. Yes, you can. You did. Very successful.
Pigment, but I got it.
Yeah.
Jeff, you're making like the best product available, in my opinion, right now. And it's my job to see how much I can mess it up.
Somebody's got to beat it up, right?
Right.
I just want to make it look bad, but no.
Oh man, it's funny because and we've said this in other episodes, but like I'm not going to be over here vilifying a pinhole. Now, if you're over here getting like thumbnail sized bug holes, that's a different story. But like
that, yeah,
unless you want them.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you wanted them, sure. But like, if you're casting a 16-inch tall vertical, and unless you really pull your fibers back to the point where like maybe if you're down at like 1.75% fibers, especially with the Owens Corning, because as and this is, I don't even know if I've told you this, Dylan, the Owens Cornings, the really stiff ones, the Semfill 60s,
mm-hmm.
They
TEX 135s.
Yeah, they don't like stick in the matrix early so like your one day strengths, when you break the piece intentionally, of course, like Jeff's machine, the fibers like actually slip out and you get like hairs on the end of the breakage.
Yeah.
And
their one day strength is not
it's poor
as high
comparatively.
It's not terrible, right? It's not like they don't work, but you get significantly higher, measurably, and more importantly, a higher degree of your failure envelope is pushed much higher with the NEGA fibers because the cement matrix
actually penetrates the fibers.
Yeah,
but you do get better flow with the Owens Corning. So my point was, down at a lower fiber dose, you could totally achieve a remarkable pinhole-free, all of that, finish.
Oh, okay.
But there's a sacrifice there, and for me, I haven't even played with the low fiber dose because I'm like, well, what's the point? I could make it like I'd rather have the strength, right? So I've been sticking at the 2.5%, which is a fantastic. So if you're at 3% fibers, back it down to 2.5, blow your mind.
2.5.
2.5. So this whole exercise, right? This whole exercise of looking at developing this admixture and realizing that the flowability is so important. Like everything, like 90% of the tests I've done are with 3% 19 millimeter glass fibers, right? Sort of the standard. That's always been my standard. Do this, whatever. And you can get decent flow with 3%. And I thought, all right, well, what happens if you start backing the fiber content down? Because there's not a lot of information on the web about that.
Right.
And I have some
reliable information.
I have some non-published technical information that Hiram Ball gave me from research back in the 80s on that for commercial geophorsy. And they have some graphs that do like a 1, a 2, and a 3% and all this, but they're real vague, and they're the wrong size fibers. They're like 1-inch fibers. And it doesn't really apply. So I don't really look at that and say I can rely on it. So I'm like, all right, I got to look at the effects of reducing the fiber size, also looking at different brands of fibers, different sizes of fibers, different materials, fiber types, that sort of thing. I'm not done with that yet, but it's very interesting how, yes, it's not linear. It's not a linear correlation between the amount of strength you get and the amount of workability or flow.
Right.
Like I have a machine that can measure the flow, very consistently measure the flow of the concrete. And when if you look at 3% fiber load as sort of like your standard, when you drop down to 2.5%, you might lose, I don't know, I'm going to wave my hands and say like 10% of your flexural strength. Maybe it's not even that much.
But the flow is insanely different.
Your flow rate, the amount it can spread, goes up a lot, like significantly, like 25, 30% better. And then when you drop down to like 2%, so you go from 3% down to 2.5% down to 2%, now your flow really gets huge at 2%.
I mean, you can get, I know these numbers don't make a ton of sense, but
strength. Like
yeah, exactly.
2%, you're probably losing 25% of your flexural strength-ish. I'm, again, waving my hands and it's all over the place, but to give you a general sense,
10% is negligible.
But this is where you have to start thinking about, what am I making?
What are you making? Exactly.
Like if I'm doing a vessel sink, right, you do definitely want fibers in it, but it's not going to be bending. You're not really putting a lot of flex in it. So you don't need super, super high fiber dose. You just want enough so that a plumber doesn't crank on it or the UPS driver drops it, right? But you definitely don't want to make it with no fibers.
Right.
Now, when you start to drop below 2% fiber load, and again, we're talking about glass fibers, it starts to behave as if it had no fibers at all. Like it does, like there's not a big difference between having no fibers and having
1.75%, right?
A little bit of fibers from,
because there's no matrix.
There's nothing like the smallest defect in the matrix, whether it's a bubble or a shrinkage crack or something,
it compromises the whole thing. It
shatters it because the material's brittle, right?
Yep.
And what fibers do in a composite is they help intercept the cracks, they help absorb energy, and now the whole matrix becomes much tougher. And that's why when I do bite tests, and when in the real world, when they do real flexural tests according to ASTM 947-C, and I forget which version of it is 01 or 09 or whatever, which is the year they amended the standard. So you're bending your sample, right? And
here's the ruler.
They look,
we got the
my ruler out.
out.
Hey, folks, everybody sees it, right? So the way I do my tests is I test it so that the tensile side is up, so I can see what's happening, and I can see first crack, and I can also note what the load was at first crack, and then back calculate.
The first crack's the one that matters because that's the one your client sees.
What matters, and what I've noticed is at low fiber loads, your first crack load drops, and then as you get higher and higher, like 2.5%, 3%, it pushes that first crack load too. So not only does it affect the main ultimate strength, but it also affects your first crack, which is the one that matters, because you lift a slab and the piece cracks and you're like, crap, now I got to redo it, not because it fell apart, but because it got a hairline crack, and the customer's not going to be happy about that. So I'm learning like tons of really interesting things that are not obvious.
Right.
They're not really published that much because, again, all the technical information that's out there is structural in nature, seismic mostly. And they don't care about cracks in terms of what they look like. They just want to make sure, hey, is the building going to stand up and not kill people when an earthquake happens or something like that? Nobody cares about cracks in the way they look.
Well, and to your point,
except for us.
Yeah. But if all you're making is, 24-inch long sinks or whatever, like it doesn't matter. You could do a 2% 1.75% fiber load, and that flow really is what matters, right?
Yeah.
So because you're going to get some impact resistance from those fibers and whatever. So, but if you're doing a 20-foot piece, it matters a lot.
It absolutely matters.
And so I think that there's
when that 10% matters.
Yeah, and that's where I think the community at large is not seeing the full picture. It's like, well, I have to have flow. It's like, okay, depends on what you're making. Yes, of course you want flow. Everybody wants flow. But if you're making a little, 5-foot mantle, or if you're making a 2-foot sink, you can get away with a lot. If you're making a 15-foot countertop or a 20-foot hearth or a your round table, like if you're making any of these, I remember you've got a picture, Dylan, on Facebook where you're kind of standing like this under a forklift with a double waterfall island. If you're making something like that, you've got to have the strength, and you need to know what the strength is.
Yep.
Right. So it's not just this kind of mimbly bimbly whatever. You don't have to torque it. You can just kind of do whatever, and it's fine. You've got to actually know what you're doing.
Yeah, and that matters. Everything like that matters so much too. Like it's not even about like transporting it or.
Well, it matters in 5 years too, right?
When you flip it, like just flipping the damn thing, that stuff matters. Like people forget about that. Like that thing's like a day or two old and it's massive, and you're about to flip it. Like
how often do you make something massive and you don't realize the scale until you've done it, and then you're like, oh god, how do I flip it?
Yeah. I usually think about that when I'm halfway through casting.
You're like,
Here's another like facet of all that, right? When you're working with concrete that you have a high degree of confidence about, that you understand, and you can draw on the information that I'm going to use my example. I've given you, like, here's the basic flexural strength and all that, right? When you talk to people, especially when you talk to designers and architects, they're gonna be able to tell somebody who just doesn't know what they're doing and just wing it. It's like, it doesn't matter, or I don't know, or they're waving their hands and being vague because they don't know what they're getting, they don't know what they have, and they don't know what they can give.
Well, and I think there's also a difference between somebody who says yes and figures it out and understands the material versus somebody who says yes and tries to figure it out without the understanding of the material.
Yeah.
Okay.
As he sinks out of frame.
And thank you for joining us, Dylan.
And the end of the podcast. No, I'm kidding.
All right, I gotta
go. He just clicks blank screen.
No. Well, I mean, these are really good points. I mean, I've always thought that
this is my first direct cast yesterday. I'm making these new panel design, and I'm like, I just direct casted it.
Yeah.
No fibers. No nothing.
Where are you going, Caleb?
Yeah, I'm like, all right, maybe I need to redo my mold making process. Think about that.
I love direct casting. It's my favorite thing ever.
Yeah, I've never really been into it. I have my reasons.
Because you're into the finishes.
Yeah.
You're into the, I mean, you can see it in the frame behind you.
What's behind me?
That? No, not that. Well, no. I'm referring to your.
And it was pills, and I threw some concrete pigment in there.
I'm referring to behind your shoulder, those panels and stuff. Like you're into the finishes, what can I, and so there's a lot that the mist coat has to be a certain way. You have to manipulate the mist coat. I remember I did at your advice. I was like trying to figure out how to get a mist coat to crack. I wanted it to crack so I could grab it in a different color. I had this I think I called it magma or something. It was like a great crack. gray concrete with cracks, and I grouted the cracks with orange. It was wild. But I took a blowtorch to the mist coat.
Yeah, man.
And so many of your finishes rely on having a mist coat to screw with.
Yep.
And so, there's this, I think there's a range of artisans where some people want ultra clean cut, I'm going to direct cast it. It's going to be pinhole free or near enough that makes no difference. And I'm just going to acid etch it, install it. And that's my deal. I want to make gray squares.
That's why.
That's valid. But then there's your end of the spectrum that's like, no. I want the full range of what I can do with this material involved in every piece.
And you know what? That's why I love GFRC so much.
Yes.
Because it's such a Swiss Army knife of what you can do. Because if you don't want to deal with all that and you just do direct casting, right? Simple, easy.
Direct. Yeah.
But if you want that visible surface to manipulate to create that beautiful texture or multi-layered, multicolor textures. I think I posted on the CCI website recently. A long time ago, I did a lounge chair that was polka dotted, and it had 3 different colors in it. And so I had polka dots inside this bright blue thing. And it gives you that option of doing crazy things and yet still making strong, durable, reliable product.
And so many people, a lot of artisans, and again, I get it. As artisans, it's like, wouldn't it be great if our lives were easier? Let's just do solid colors with no pinholes and like just acid etch and get it out. I get it.
Not all the time.
I get it. And I do that, right? But then there are times where I'm like, ooh, I want that finish, and you've got to do, baking soda and glow in the dark aggregate, and you've got to do, pigment in the baking soda, and you got to let it do something, right? Mm-hmm. And some of those things you can do direct cast, and then some of those things you have to have a mist coat, and you have to know how to manipulate the mist coat. And I remember one time, Dylan, didn't you poured a bunch of water into the form, sprayed the mist coat, and then heated the underside of the table?
If you go to your guys' website, if you go to your guys' website and the picture you guys have for Omega, that's the piece.
I'm going to see if I can find that.
And so it's like those types of things. You can't just, you've got to. But again, that's the understanding of the material to say, I can do these. I can do the full range, right? I can do.
Go ahead.
No, it's just, if you understand, all the way front to back, and we can always learn more, but you understand the limits, right?
Yeah.
You can do so many more finishes.
And then when you
honestly, grouting, you can do so much with grout.
Dude, I
love grout.
Yeah. I love grout. I don't know what all these discussions are about not liking grout. Like grout, dude, depending on how wet the concrete is, it changes how much it pulls the pigments in or out. And like, you can do so much. You can totally transform a piece.
Oh, there it is.
Hang on.
There it is.
There it is.
Yeah, man. I did that thing on like 0 sleep. I was like, man, I'm just going to do something new.
There you go.
God, it looks so good.
It's so good. Like those cracks, I love. When I was working at Structural, their floors were resurfaced and it had tons of shrinkage cracks like that everywhere. And I was obsessed with them, dude. People would find me just sitting down looking at the cracks. They'd be like, dude, what are you doing? I'm like, come here. Look at how this little thing did this. They're like, right.
Oh,
but yeah, when it comes to GFRC, so like, you find the limits and you can push them, right?
Yeah.
That gives you unlimited possibility right there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you take a cross section of that, you're only talking about 3/16 to a 1/4 inch of real estate, and then you can come back and make it strong as piss and not worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the beauty. That's why I really don't direct cast.
I mean, it's fair,
Yeah.
Because, the other thing that you do that you get away with that a lot of people, and for those of you who listen, please go look at Dylan's Instagram or his website. Like, the things, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is that you get away with those things because you just do them. You like impose yourself upon your clients, and they accept it and they're here for it and they love it, and that's your like shtick. Your whole thing is like, I'm Dylan and you get me.
Yeah. They're like,
and you're fortunate enough to have the talent and the vision to be able to create really amazing, spontaneous designs and aesthetics.
thank you.
I mean, that's.
I wouldn't say spontaneous.
Well,
there's a deep understanding involved.
Yeah, and I think about things so much. Like I go down rabbit holes. Like, was it last night or the night? No, it was the night before last night. I'm working on this new panel design. It's all textured. I made the sample. Like I spent all this time taking care of this. I couldn't sleep, man. I woke up. The dog woke me up. I'm like, it's 2:00. I'm like, whatever. I came into work because I wanted to see. I wanted to see if what I was thinking about would actually work, right? Like I had to know.
Yeah. That's the passion, right?
Yeah, I think. I don't know, or insanity, whatever. But it's like, I think it's calculated risks that I'm making now. Before, it was just risky. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. So I'd mess something up and I'd be like, oh.
That's the wisdom that comes from experience, right?
Yeah.
But you have to have a baseline, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. Because like you said, before you were just taking wild guesses, taking chances, and you were just, winging it, right?
Oh,
so you...
Yeah. Well, yeah. But to go back to the previous part of the conversation about when I started getting all those big commercial jobs.
Yep.
That's when you really came in to help. Like you helped a lot at structural, but I really wasn't on a timeline. Now I'm in the frying pan and I'm falling into a huge fire, man. I'm like hanging on by my fingernails. And I was thinking, like, I started listening to your guys' podcasts and everything, and I like went down a little memory road. I was like, oh, that's so. And then I was just like, oh my god! Like I started thinking about what I'd done. I was just like, what the fuck? Like, dude, like I mean,
that's the title of this podcast, by the way.
What?
But I was thinking about it.
No. I know what the title is, and I'm gonna just. The explicit label's already on this, so whatever. Yeah. The title of this podcast is Dylan Motherfucking Myers. That's what the title is. That's what the title. It's just that's it.
but yeah, so I remember like. I mean, I don't
remember this.
I don't.
Throw down thick and dirty, baby.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just like, man,
why didn't I get one of those? Yeah.
Because I figured I'd see you by now.
Do you still have any?
Yeah.
So you're gonna bring me one when you come in November, right?
The reason why you never got one is because you have to earn it.
Gloves off, son.
Gloves off,
okay.
Man.
All right.
So you did earn it. I've just been busy and I haven't been able to get it to you.
Okay, so you're going to take a couple of days and you're going to come in November, right? That's what you should do.
Yeah. What's that?
November 9th and 10th. Come to my shop.
Oh, if I can, I will. If I figure these jobs out, I will. Full on, man. That'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Yeah. But yeah, had I not, like seriously, had I not had the support of you, Jeff, I wouldn't have made it through those days. Like, I wouldn't have. And I know a lot of the phone calls we had, I'd been up for well over 48 hours working nonstop. So it was complete verbal diarrhea coming out of my mouth. But for some damn reason, you were able to decipher it. I have no idea how, but you did.
I've heard it all.
Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, it really is. That's the. That is, I mean, yeah, it's the constant support. You know, because and I don't know that we've mentioned this, and we really do. It's an hour and 19, so we've been trying to keep them under an hour and a half. So we should probably pull it in a minute. But if I remember correctly,
I feel like we're
Dylan,
just talking on the phone.
I know, which we usually do talk for an hour and a half. But I remember this moment, Dylan, because I was sitting next to you in class. And I think Brett Carragher was next to us, and he started asking Jeff a question about GFRC. And I'm over here in my own head, like, what is GFRC? Can somebody please? And I was too embarrassed to like ask the question. I'm trying.
What? I had no idea.
And so I'm over here, like, I'm just like rapt attention, waiting for somebody to define it for me.
And everybody's talking about all the jobs and experience they've had, and I'm just like, I made bench legs.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I'm like, I've broken a lot.
Yeah, Caleb's like, I break stuff.
That I knew how to do really well.
Just to be fair, I did eventually define it. It might have been Friday, but I did.
Oh, you did. No, you defined. Well, we made it. This was probably Monday, but then we're over here talking about fibers, and then somebody says GFRC, and I did the dots did not connect, right?
Right.
And so I mean, by the and to the credit of the ultimate craft concrete course, I went home and made an entire project. I did go home with the sink. I
wanted that sink, man. I know. Pissed.
It was such a cool sink. So I went home and did a job. I think during that week I got a job. It was like 14 or 15 pieces that had to go to the Bahamas, and they were all stained. And I didn't. And to the credit of Ultimate, I pulled off that job.
Wait a minute.
It was my first ever GFRC job.
How long after the course?
The next week.
How many pieces?
Like 14 or 15. And I didn't have, like, the only employee I had was, Jeff, you've heard me talk about Alan. The only employee I had was a 56-year-old alcoholic who lived in my studio. Like,
I'm going to embarrass you, Caleb.
Oh, gosh, yes. Let's go. I'm so ready.
Dude, I want that picture.
Yes.
I'm hiding my thumb.
There you are. There's Caleb.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Dude, you can send me that picture. That's awesome.
Well, but I mean, you can embarrass yourself too, Jeff.
I know. Yeah. That was my Coach 12.
Oh my gosh. Yes. But yeah, no, I went home, and that week or the next week I cast my first GFRC project. Was this ridiculous project that went to the Bahamas, and I never got to go to the job site.
Damn them. Dude, remember, oh my God. We were using E32K back then too, man. Oh, yeah. What a nightmare. Oh, Caleb, you never had the pleasure of working with that, did you?
Pleasure? Is that what you would call it? No, I didn't. What was the
routing skills needed? Jesus.
And then again, Caleb?
Well, it was some sort of acrylic sealer that you demoed in class because you were like, I use E32K, but we're not going there.
No, we used E32K.
In class, did we?
Yeah.
I remember an HVLP gun.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah. And it's fine to use if you're used to using it. But if you're sleep deprived and under deadlines, it sucks.
Let's just clarify for folks out there, what it used to be is not the same as it is now. So they're not. Yeah, don't.
Well, I change it. Yeah, and I heard somebody recommend it recently. I don't remember who it was, but I heard somebody recommend it recently. They were like, if I was going to use any like topical, coating, I'd use E32K. And I'm like, you sure?
It may have been me because one of my designers still specifies my concrete, and when I see a set of plans, it's like they write it like stained, sealed with Stone Tech E368, just to mess with everybody.
Like, that's so funny. You need to update that.
No, because they don't know what to bid against. It's brilliant.
Oh, that's very well. That's why what are your colors are like off-white number 3, and it's purple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mine bombs everywhere.
Dylan Myers' minefield.
One last photo to share. Has nothing to do with concrete.
Oh, I can't see it yet. Yes. Oh, that was at the Concrete Palace.
That was at the Concrete Palace. Yep.
Where was that?
I remember the guy from Bermuda had brought you some sort of something.
That was my house.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
That
I talk to that guy sometimes. He's a trip. What was his name? No, he's from Trinidad.
It was Trinidad, not Bermuda.
yeah, Sean.
What's that?
I believe his
Sean.
name is Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I remember I came into the hotel and I'm like, man, this place is weird. Like nobody's around.
The Circle Hotel, the Cylinder.
Yeah. And this tall, tan, blonde dude starts talking to me with the freaking Jamaican accent. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's Brett right there.
Yep.
I think that's Sean.
Yeah, that's Sean. Yeah,
That's Sean.
That's him.
Yep. Oh, anyway,
Jamaican accent.
thought I'd share that.
I love it. Oh my gosh, this has been the greatest possible trip down memory lane, and I also feel like whoever's listening is probably gonna be like, "What just happened?"
Yeah. but
I don't think I answered any questions.
when you come to class, and then you're going to be part of us, and
It's true.
you're going to make new memories with us.
It's true.
Yeah, man.
It's true.
I'll do that.
So November 9th and 10th, we got GFRC, and December 4th through 8th, we got Ultimate. The Ultimate.
Ultimate.
The one, the only, the Ultimate. Yeah, super excited. And Dylan, if you just need to drop in.
Yeah, I will. But I was going to say, I still to this day pull knowledge from the early days. Like it's ridiculous. Like I think it's how you learn it.
You absorb it slowly, right? Like things hit you 10 years later, and you're like, oh, that's what he meant.
Yeah, but then when you're also in it, like it can go from a great day to a really, really, really bad few days in like a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Like one little thing wrong and it sucks. But that's part of the draw. That's why I like it. You got to be on it. It's a monster. It doesn't care. But like, yeah, like I know how to navigate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, would you say, because when you helped in 16, did it like blow your mind how much you had like stored back there but didn't realize you knew, and then it started to make sense when you came back to help with the class? Like, because that was how it was for. I thought you said you helped with something. Anyway, that was one thing that.
No, I helped in Vegas.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Vegas.
Yeah, that was one thing that really blew my mind. Is when I went back in, I think it was 18, Jeff, to help with my first Ultimate class. Y'all had called me and you were like, or we were talking, and you were like, "Would you like to come help?" And I was like, "Yes, obviously." And I learned more in the second go round because I had actually implemented the knowledge into experience, and then to go back and take the same class, it's like, it's a total blow your mind experience. I feel like.
Yeah, I'm sure, because like Jeff, like you were making some rapid set in like the parking lot in Vegas, right? And you're like, "Hey, I need a hand. Can you help me?" I was like, "Yeah."
Outside.
Yeah. So I was like, "Yeah, I remember now." So I was like, "Yeah, I'll help you." And like there was a bunch of people watching and everything, and you're like, "Here, do this," and I like start doing it, and then I'm like, "Oh, wait a minute, hold on, I can't just do this. I need to explain it to people and let them know." I'm like, they don't know what I'm doing, and they need to know what I'm doing. So it actually helped me because I had to think about what I was doing, and show them what I was doing, and talk to them about what I was doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can totally see how being at the class again would be a benefit.
Yeah. So alumni, think about it. We've only got 2 alumni spots left. Just FYI.
Oh, well, I'll send you my bill and I'll come down and help you. Teach.
You're funny.
It's all about that first crack.
All about that first. So the title of the episode, it's expanded now. The title of the episode, Dylan motherfucking Myers. It's all about that first crack.
It's all about that first crack.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, with that,
we should wrap this up. We got 13 seconds left.
well,
Yeah, man,
this is going to cut us off. But I mean, we could do 3 hours. But the problem is, we would do 3 hours.
Yeah,
No, we would. And I appreciate you guys like reaching out and asking me to do this with you. This
Yeah.
is like at first I was like, nah, whatever, sure. Like I'm like whatever. I'm like podcast, and then I like started listening to them, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'm like totally down with this. I'm like, this is cool, man. Yeah,
Well,
I'll do it.
Well, Dylan, happy
Appreciate
10 years.
Yeah, happy 10-year Caleb. You
definitely.
too, Jeff.
Fantastic.
So,
All right.
awesome. Well, I mean, this is as good a place to end as any I've had a ton of fun.
Yeah, it has been fun.
So,
Yes. If we do this again, we will be drinking. Just saying. We're laying ground rules.
we're going to do a bonus.
early in
It's
the
going to be a
morning.
bonus episode.
Yeah, and it'll be early in the morning, and we're going to be drinking.
Okay, so on Friday, day after tomorrow, we're going to the hospital to have a baby, scheduled C-section. So there's going to be a morning where I'm going to text you, Dylan, at like 3 in the morning. I'm going to be like, I'm feeding the baby. FaceTime me.
All right.
We'll have some tequila.
All right, I'm down.
We're not doing a podcast at 3 in the morning. I'm sorry.
No, but it'll be
You're on your
7:30. Okay.
We'll just start priming at 3.
From the pump, baby. All right, y'all.
All right. Thanks for
Bye,
joining.
guys. See you, man.
See ya.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Maker in the Mix podcast. If you liked the content and want to hear more, please like and subscribe. Feel free to follow us on YouTube as well as Instagram, Facebook, and check out the website, www.concretecountertopinstitute.com. And of course, we'd love to see you at one of our upcoming classes. Tune in next week for more informative content. Thanks.